Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bible Rave. You want to talk about it? Today, we're going to talk about the Bible. Today, we're going to be in Genesis, and I just want to go over to chapter 27 roughly because I want to talk about repetition. I want to talk about generational cycles, and Abraham and his family is like the perfect example. So if you don't know Abraham, he is the guy that God gave all the nations to. He is the guy that his wife, Sarah, she had a child at 100 named Isaac. He is the one that God asked to go and kill this child, excuse me, and give him as a sacrifice. And when he did, an angel stopped him and said, "Don't do that. Now we know that you're going to listen to God unequivocally." And that was his test. So, generational cycles. What is a generational cycle? Generational cycle is something that happens within one generation, and then the next generation repeats it. So, for instance, you have a great-great-grandmother who ended up in a bad relationship, had kids. It was an unloving relationship, maybe abusive, right? But she stuck around. She maybe mistreated the kids because of her sadness dealing with it. I don't know the fine details, but the child from that marriage, let's say it's a girl, she will end up finding a relationship that is abusive, that is unloving, that is not safe. And she will stay and she will fight, and it will seem normal when she has a child. And so that child will end up, maybe even not wanting to, end up in a relationship that is abusive and that is unsafe. That is generational cycles, okay? When God told Abraham that Sarah was gonna have a child at 100, Abraham said, "Okay, cool." When Sarah heard she was gonna have a child at 100, she laughed. And then the angels confronted her and confronted Abraham, "Why does your wife laugh?" Could you imagine hiding behind a tent, snickering, and then being called out about it? Well, anyways, the point about generational cycles is that Abraham had Sarah, and Sarah was a beautiful woman. And when they had to travel a couple times, I think it was 2 times, the first generational cycle is that Abraham said, "Sarah, let's lie. Let's say we are brother and sister so that I don't get killed." Because back then a king kills you, your husband or whatever, and then you marry him, right? And so he says, "Let's lie. Let's say that you're my my sister, and they won't kill me." So that's what they did. Well, the king of that area ends up finding out. He says, "Why would you lie?" He's like, "Well, I didn't want y'all to kill me." He's like, "I took her as wife. Why would you bring shame to our country like that?" So he gives him Sarah back. He's like, "Just leave us alone. Don't bring that disrespect upon us." Okay. The second generational cycle is that while Abraham and Sarah were waiting for a child, Sarah was disbelieving. Sarah didn't believe this was going to happen because, 1, the circumstances, but 2, it was just taking a long time. So she said, "Well, since we're not going to have our own kid, then you take my handmaiden, my servant, and you have kids with her. Her name is Hagar." Abraham's like, "What?" And she's like, "Yep, that's what we're going to do." And it's always interesting to me that Abraham was like, "No." He's like, "All right." So he takes Hagar. Hagar now becomes not only Sarah's housemaid, but now I believe she also becomes Abraham's concubine, potentially. So concubine is a side chick that is official, but is not the official wife. So you have a wife, and then you can have like a bunch of concubines, and that was fine back then. So Abraham takes Hagar. They have a son. The son's name is Ishmael. Sarah gets upset. Hagar starts treating her like, I'm better than you because I have a kid, you don't. So Sarah gets super upset. All right. And then when she's upset, she forces Abraham to kick Ishmael and Hagar out of the house with nothing and send them into like the desert to fend for themselves, essentially. And so Ishmael is probably like, I don't know, 16 at this point. And that is actually what is said to be the beginning of the Islamic and Muslim community. Now, what's the generational cycle? Well, Sarah does have a son. His name is Isaac. Isaac goes and gets a wife. Her name is Rebecca. Now, when Isaac and Rebecca have to go to another place, guess what Isaac says? Hey, let's just say you're my sister, and then we'll move forward. The king sees, I always think it's funny, the word fondling is in the Bible, but the king sees Isaac fondling his wife. And then he's like, what are you doing? Is this your wife or is this your sister? He's like, this is, I guess he said, my father's or my mother's father's daughter or whatever. Like, so it was like your dad and your mom had their siblings and you could marry from like your first cousins. But then Rachel, Rebecca, Isaac's wife, I'm trying to make sure I get this story straight. She became conniving too. And so instead of throwing out the son, Rebecca says, I have two sons, Esau and Jacob. Esau is supposed to be the heir to my husband's throne, but Jacob is my favorite. So the first thing is that Esau was hungry. Jacob had made food. I'm trying to make sure I get this right. Esau was hungry. Jacob had made food. Esau said, give me some food. I'm starving. And Jacob said, give me your birthright. So he said, fine. Okay, like birthright's a really big deal. But then when it was time to get the blessing for the family, Rebecca heard that Isaac had said, go make me food, Esau, and then I'll bless you. So she tells Jacob, I'll make this food, you go get ready. The son says, I don't, like, isn't this wrong? And she's like, let your curses be upon me, but go and get this. And he's like, well, I'm not hairy. Esau's hairy. He's gonna know. So she covers his hands and his hairless parts of his neck with the skins of the kids, which are like young sheep, right? And this got me. So those are your two things. Same exact deceptive stories, there's actually another one in here and I'm missing it. But it might be right after this. But then the father, I think it's after. There's another, the same lineage, right? So the next generation, they're supposed to go get a wife, and then the guy works for 7 years and then gets tricked into the wrong wife and then works another 7 years to get the right wife. And so here again, so now Jacob is about to bless Esau, who had already been tricked out of his birthright for food, who now his mom has turned against him and told his younger brother, Jacob, you need to go get this blessing instead. I'll make this food. You do this. Now, 3 is a holy number in the Bible. When Jacob shows up, he says he went to his father. And his father said, where are you? And Jacob said, I'm Esau, your firstborn. I've done as you told me. Isaac, the son that Abraham wanted, right? So Isaac said, how did you succeed so quickly? How did you make this food quickly? Because he told Esau, go out with a bow and arrow and hunt me game. That's what he told him. And make me food and bring it to me. So when Rebecca heard it, the time frame was too fast. Red flag 1 for Isaac. So Jacob, as fake Esau, says, because the Lord your God granted me a good fortune. First deception. So then Isaac said, okay, come closer so I can feel you, so I know whether you are really my son or not. So, I mean, that's like second time, right? So then Jacob drew close to his father, and he said, the voice isn't right, but I can feel the fur. So again, Isaac's unsure. He did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like his brother Esau, and so he blessed him. He said, again, are you my son? I mean, these red flags are flying for Isaac. And again, he said, serve me. Then fake Esau, Jacob, said, yeah. And he's like, okay, well, let me eat. And first he says, let me kiss you. What is this, the 4th red flag he's trying to pull? He's like, let me kiss you. So Jacob, fake Esau, leans in and gives him a kiss. But what Isaac was actually doing without his sight, and this is where the whole thing is, he doesn't have good eyesight, he smelled the clothes. So in generational cycles, and so the end of the story is that Jacob ends up getting Esau's total blessing over getting the entire estate of the family, over being in charge of his older brother, over the actual Esau. He gets everything. He stole it right out from underneath Esau with his mother's help. And then the best part was, this is how when people are conniving, they throw you under the bus. Then afterwards, let me see if I can find it really quick. I wasn't planning on saying it. The mom, Rebecca, is talking to Jacob, and she's like, your brother knows what you did. You need to leave and flee so he doesn't kill you. She said, until your brother's anger against you subsides and he forgets what you have done to him. She first said, your curse be upon me. And then now she's backing out and completely putting it on Jacob when Jacob said it was wrong. So if you have generational cycles, if you have these patterns that you're seeing, you need to be more aware, because maybe you are becoming aware of a generational cycle. Maybe you're breaking it. Maybe you're going to say, I don't want a relationship like this, and I'm going to work my best at standing up and speaking out for myself. Maybe you're going to just find out that you're actually a mirror image of your parents sometimes. And even though we don't like it, sometimes it's best if we face it. When these generational cycles happen, normally people don't talk about them because it brings shame, right? But look at this. I mean, they said their wives were their sisters. The wife is taking one child's blessing and then giving it to another one because the father couldn't see. You have Sarah snickering at angels and at God's word. I know I'm over today, but this family has generational cycles, and maybe your family does too. And if it does, pay attention to the red flags that may be your intuition. Start setting heavier boundaries for yourself. And I think the most important thing is that even if you're not seen in Isaac's situation and Sarah's situation, even if it's not seen, still do the right thing, because God sees. It comes out. Everything comes out in the light. So I hope you enjoyed today, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.